You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast. This is the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me at official Sam Little on Instagram. There's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, yes. Welcome back. A big welcome back to the Maple Footy Podcast. After probably about a month hiatus, I am back better than ever, recharged, and all that fun stuff. Of course, the Euros ended, Copa ended, and I decided to take a little bit of a break. And what's happened since then? Nothing of note. I mean, there was no drone scandals or nothing, right? Oh, there was? Oh, my bad. Sorry. I must have missed that. No, I obviously didn't. It was all over everywhere. And yeah, I contemplated checking back in and talking about it, but honestly, I didn't want to pile on the Canadian women's national team during what was already a pretty heated, to be polite, time. And I just didn't feel like I really wanted to really add fuel to the fire. You know, I know I'm not. I'm by no means the biggest person in Canadian football, so not like me saying much would have really added a whole ton of fuel, but, I just let them play. The girls didn't do it. It was the higher ups that were doing it, so why should the girls have to face the repercussion? That's kind of how I feel about it, and that's honestly as much as I'm going to talk about it. If I'm being honest, maybe someday in the future I might talk about it once all the fallout is done, because I still think there's probably a lot more fallout to come. But for now, we're going to leave it, and we're not going to talk about it. What else has happened in Canadian football? Ooh, geez. Well, just as of recording this, today, the day of recording, Moise Bombito to Nice. He just got confirmed. It got the here we go maybe a week ago from Fabrizio, of course. Fabrizio Romano. I say Fabrizio like I know him personally. From Fabrizio Romano, the big-time journalist, honestly, one of my favorite people to follow, because you kind of love to get those here we goes when it's about your club. And yeah, so Moise Bombito to Nice, here we go. Done now. Amazing. I think it's a great move for him. Another Canadian. I think that makes 5 in Ligue 1 at the moment. So that's pretty big, I would say, and definitely a far away from, not having guys anywhere near top level, let alone one of the top 5 leagues in the world. So congratulations to Bombito. Of course, that's unreal. His story is insane. If you have a minute, definitely go check it out. I mean, he was playing like college level football 3 years ago, and now he's playing with Nice, a pretty well recognized club, I would say. So definitely gonna have to be watching a lot of Ligue 1 between him, Cornelius, Kone, Bear, and of course Jonathan David if he does end up staying in Ligue 1, as the jury is always still out on his future with Lille. So we'll see where that goes. Another big move I thought that I don't think I've touched upon, Liam Miller to Hull City. Done. He's already made his debut, got an assist over the weekend. So really hope he does well. I hope that move really works out for him. Apparently he had a lot of offers coming in post-Copa. So good for him at Hull. They were very close to promotion last year. Hopefully maybe he's the final piece to get them promotion into the Prem next season. Only time will tell, but regardless, hope that he has a great season. What other moves? Kone, definitely. I did touch on that. Cornelius got his move to Marseille. Once again, massive move, of course. Really happy for him. A guy that's really rebuilt his career and has taken it to new heights that I'm not sure many people would have envisioned even 2 years ago, and that's no disrespect to him. If anything, that's a compliment, given that he went to Malmo to get playing time and get his form back, and now here he is playing for Marseille, a very, very, very big club. And yeah, that's really the big Canadian moves that I don't think I touched upon before going on the hiatus. I'm sure I probably missed maybe one or two, but those are I feel like the big talking points. So now what? Now what do we do? Because we can't have a 4-minute episode. Oh my gosh. yeah, so this is the Maple Footy podcast. And of course, I want to still continue talking about Canadian football. And I will continue talking about Canadian football. But I need something consistently to talk about and a league that I consistently follow. And if you watched my intro or listened to my intro episode, you will know that I said that the Premier League will be the league that I am going to be covering for the foreseeable future. Who knows, that may change. We'll see. But so this will be the first, I guess, Premier League episode. I mean, I already did a Premier League episode. It was the Premier League recap back. That was the first episode I dropped. But now the first Premier League episode of the new season, we should say. And we'll see how the Prem coverage goes, you know. If maybe you guys, listeners, aren't feeling it, we can always pivot. Nothing is set in stone here. So now, how is this going to be done? You're the Maple Footy podcast. Shouldn't you be covering Canada? I will be covering Canada. I will I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to keep up with all the Canadian boys. I will definitely always be covering international breaks and international play. And then outside of that, I will probably touch upon Canadian boys at the start of maybe every episode, or maybe do a separate episode. We'll see. Obviously, time, you know, I do have other things, you know, school, work, blah, 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 all the fun stuff. But so I will try to keep up with the Canadian boys. I personally will obviously be keeping up with the Canadian boys, but I will try to relay that information to all of you because, yeah, this is the Maple Footy podcast. I want to cover these boys, so that's what we're going to be doing, you know. Once again, nothing set in stone. It is still very much a work in progress. So moving away from that, let's move back to the Prem. And obviously, I am one person. This is a one-person operation. So I physically cannot watch 10 games of Premier League football every single weekend. So here is the format I have concocted on how I'm going to conduct Premier League coverage going forward, and that will be how we're kind of going to conduct the remainder of this episode after I introduce it. So I've broken it down into 8, I guess, segments, you could say. So segment 1 is match of the weekend, and that will be, obviously, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. It will be the best match of the weekend. What was the most back and forth match? What was the highest energy match? Something like that, you know, that I watched, that maybe if you didn't watch it, maybe go back and watch it, maybe watch the highlights, however you want to consume it. And then biggest winners of the weekend. And biggest winners doesn't necessarily who won by the biggest margin of goals. It's more so who won this weekend. And in that, I mean, who really took a big win, whether it was a big win from promotion, a big win towards a title, just a big personal win maybe even, or just anything that can be classed as a win. It's not necessarily, well, Man City beat Fulham 5-0 this weekend, so that was your biggest win. It could just be Fulham drew with Nottingham Forest, and it keeps Fulham outside the relegation zone. It could be something like that. So then moving into biggest losers, once again, not necessarily who lost by the biggest margin, just whose weekend was up there with the worst. Who would like that weekend redone? Best performance. I really like this one. I really like best performance because it can be a team performance or it can be an individual performance. Just a performance that I want to highlight and kind of talk about a little bit in depth. Whether it's, well, I really thought Manchester United had a great team performance, or if I thought, you know, Salah on Liverpool had a great weekend, you know, just something like that. Moment of the weekend, once again, just something positive. Just what was a great moment of the weekend? Was it that someone came back from a 9-month, you know, injury on the sideline? Was it a last-minute winner for a relegation-bound team or a team fighting for Europe? You know, just anything like that. And then we'll recap it with these last few segments, I should say, of we're going to take a look at the teams that are in and around the relegation zone. So just kind of looking at how their weekends went, if relegation is still looking like it's a very real possibility, or if maybe they've escaped it. You never know. And then obviously European places, and with European places, I'm going to cut it off at Champions League. So the top 4, and I'll say, 5th places in the Europa League, but I'll kind of be looking more at Champions League, because if I do all the way down to Europa Conference League and then relegation bound teams, I'm looking at half the league, So once again, one man show here. And then obviously the title race. So the title race will probably be pretty similar to European places. So that's why I've kind of merged those two together, unless this title race is literally just, 30 points clear. Then we at least hopefully we'll have something to talk about with European places. So on to match of the weekend. And this one is immediately going to get a big asterisk on it in its first outing. Great way to start, Sam. But yeah, most games that I saw, each team kind of looked off the pace and not that high intensity that you kind of expect. Now, them being off the pace is expected, considering that it is the first game of the season, and that's usually how that goes. Not everyone is up and ready and is their best. And, it is a marathon. It's not a sprint in the Premier League, and in any league for that matter. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Each team will kind of grow into this, you will hope and expect. But my match of the weekend is just going to be, who was your team? It's great to have the Premier League back. And yeah, just that was your match of the weekend. Just if you're a Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, Ipswich, Fulham, Nottingham Forest, whoever else, if you're a fan and you got to watch your team return to Premier League action, that was the match of the weekend. I know, kind of a little bit boring to start off my match of the weekend with that, but in all fairness, I didn't really think there was many matches that were worth talking about a whole ton. That's my opinion. But don't worry, in the coming weeks, I will not cop out and actually give you a match to watch, or go out of your way to maybe watch the highlights, or however you want to consume the game. But moving into our winners of the weekend. For this one, I'm kind of going with the title race, title challengers. The guys from last season who were in amongst the title race: Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City. Obviously, City would go on to win the league. Arsenal bottled for the second year in a row. And yeah, just each of them, funnily enough, they all won 2-0 in their games. Each of them get that winning start. And I think that's pretty obviously, once again, marathon, not a sprint. You're not winning the league after the first game. But it is good and important to get off to a good start, I would say. Man City beating Chelsea 2-0 is a good way for them to start the season. Liverpool beating Ipswich 2-0, big way to start the season. And Arsenal beating Wolves is once again a big way to start the season. Each of those teams kind of, I wouldn't say had it easy this weekend. Liverpool coming up against a newly promoted Ipswich. You'd expect them to win, but an Ipswich that would have been fueled by nothing but pure adrenaline, having returned to the Prem for the first time in 22 years, is obviously going to be a challenge. Arsenal facing Wolves. Wolves are no easy team really ever. So, they're always going to give you a run for your money. And of course, City facing Chelsea. Obviously, that's once again always going to be a challenge, especially coming to Stamford Bridge. And, Chelsea have something to prove this season, I think. So coming to that, and each of them winning 2-0 is a big way. I know that actually none of them occupied the top spot. The top spot is actually Brighton, who got off to a winning start against Everton 3-0. And yeah, that's a very big win for Brighton. Obviously, I don't expect Brighton to remain in that top spot, I just don't think they have the quality, to be blunt. Obviously, I think Liverpool, Arsenal, and City will once again kind of be those teams challenging for the league title. I don't think the other three of the big six, with Tottenham, United, or Chelsea, are there just yet. I could be proven wrong, and I kind of hope I am, because the title race is getting stale these days. But yeah, just I don't see any of them. I know both Tottenham, as of recording this, Tottenham are currently winning, and Manchester United did win their game against Fulham. Chelsea, of course, did lose. So, maybe one of those three can maybe shake things up. I'm not really super sure. I see them all challenging for Europe, but I don't really see any of them making that jump to title race just yet. And now looking at biggest losers. I feel like there's a good few here. For the first time ever, and I can guarantee you will not be the last, the refereeing is going to be a topic that we will discuss probably every other week, if we're being honest. Most likely every week will be mentioned, but I won't always make it the loser. Hopefully not, because hopefully they won't always be the talking point. But yeah, as of this moment, the biggest loser of the weekend is that stupid offside rule where the referees wait to put up their flag before calling the offside. Yeah, it's a rule that's been around now for maybe 5 years, 6 years potentially, and it's a dumb rule. It is a stupid rule, and for years people have harped on, well, what if someone gets injured in a pass-through play that's really offside? They kind of get injured pointlessly because the call should have been made for an offside, and guess what? That happened. Nottingham Forest Danilo had a very horrific leg injury, I believe it was, and it didn't look good. So rumor has it that should have been called offside, and the linesman did not raise his flag because that's what they're told to do. And now Danilo is out for I don't know how long. I haven't seen any concrete reports. I've seen really all ends of the spectrum of could be weeks, could be months. So I'll have to wait and see on that. But regardless, someone gets injured off of this stupid rule, and I think it should be abolished completely. I think if the play is offside, it should be called offside. You know it's offside, so just call it offside. The only time that I think maybe we should wait if it's offside is if it's like a goal. Maybe then wait, let that go to VAR and check it. But outside of that, it should be called off, because then literally the next day in the Chelsea City game, Nicholas Jackson strays offside and runs through the entire City defense, gets a shot off. That shot rebounds to Malo Gusto, who then takes a few touches to control the ball, then finally passes it in. Then I can't remember who takes a shot, but someone takes a shot, and then the flag goes up. It was probably genuinely 40 seconds to a minute of play. Just the day after, we just saw this happen and someone get a potential season-ending injury on the first day of the season. It's a dumb rule, and I think they need to abolish it. My second loser and my last loser is Chelsea. Chelsea Football Club. Now, I am a Chelsea fan, as that is known if you look on any of my socials or have been listening along here on the Maple Footy podcast. So I'm not going to try to go too far into this because I don't want my bias and my fandom for Chelsea to kind of take over this podcast. That's going to be a different podcast completely. I'm just kidding. There's no Chelsea exclusive podcast just yet. Okay, let's be serious. Chelsea, now, this is a mixed bag because, yes, you're playing the four-peat champs, and despite having made, I don't even know how many signings at this point this summer, none of those signings started, and really only 2 of them are first-teamers in my opinion, with Kieran Dewsbury Hall and Pedro Neto are really the 2 first-teamers for me. I know we signed Adebayo from Fulham on a free. He's more of a rotation option. And we signed the Danish goalkeeper, Jorgensen, I believe is his name. And so really, I know everyone harps on the signings we made. Those, to me, are the first-teamers. And the rest of the guys have been loaned out, have been sent to the U levels, the academy, or are going to be sold. So I kind of take that with a grain of salt of all the signings. We should be competing with the 4P Champ City at this point. What I dislike is we have made a lot of signings, and we have made a lot of first-teamer signings under Todd Boehly, and I don't see much improvement. I actually really rate the fact that Boehly came in and kind of offloaded, well, in essence, almost everyone. But it was time for a change, and fans have been calling out for that for a long time. We need new players. These players are inconsistent. And I think it was smart for them to kind of come in and really have a rebuild. Now, that rebuild has, in my opinion, not gone swimmingly, as we have seen from results and style of play. But definitely there is a rebuild going on. So I feel harsh kind of putting Chelsea in the losers, but I also don't at the same time, because the amount of investment that's gone into the squad, I still think requires better, if that makes sense. I don't think we should be a finished article, because look at the guys we're signing. They are all young. Even the first teamers we're getting are young. So I don't expect them to be the finished article, but I do also think that maybe, just maybe, we should also expect a little bit more. Now, obviously, caveat, we were playing the 4P champs. So if next week and the week after we're still sitting here going, yeah, like there really isn't any signs of much, then definitely they will probably be in the losers category here for a little bit. But for now, they are in the losers for this weekend, as I do think that it was a very disappointing start to the season. Once again, caveat, they played City, whatever. It is still a disappointing way to start the season, in my opinion, and I would like to go in depth more into Chelsea in this topic, so maybe one of these days I'll kind of do just kind of a Chelsea feelings episode where I kind of just essentially rant for 4 hours about it. And, I don't think everything that we're doing is bad, but definitely don't think everything that we're doing is good. So we'll see what happens. Best performance of the weekend. This was kind of harsh, not harsh, kind of a tricky one as well, because there's really no one that stood out to me a whole ton this weekend. But I would say it is between two guys here, both coincidentally right wingers. Both picked up a goal and an assist in their games. So first, we're going to go Bukayo Saka for Arsenal. I thought he had a very good game. Started the season out very strong. Once again, goal and an assist. He was looking very tricky, very dangerous down that right wing. Was an outlet, creating a lot of chances for his team, I thought. Creating a lot of space as well. I think this is, I don't want to say it's a make or break season for Bukayo Saka. We all know he's very, very, very class. But I did find last season and the season before, when Arsenal were in the title race, he kind of went a little bit missing come crunch time, when his team really needed those results and really needed that dagger to push them forward. I found that he wasn't maybe providing these performances that he does early on in the season, because his form seems to always dip and then never really recover. So I think, not to say it's a make or break season for him, I think it's just kind of, you need to prove everyone wrong kind of thing towards the end of the season. Because, yeah, you're obviously, every goal, every assist counts. We all know that. But coming into crunch time, obviously in about 5 months' time, if they are in the title race, as I do see them being, I think that we need to see a lot from Bukayo Saka to really kind of justify people calling him one of the best in the league, because he is probably the best in the league. I wouldn't say he is the best. He's definitely one of the best, I would say. But just come crunch time, he kind of goes missing a little bit. But here, start out well, as he always does, as he always seems to. And yeah, it's a good way to start the season for him, coming off of a wishy-washy Euros, I would say. So coming off of that, getting a strong start, getting the win, helping your club to a win, definitely a big performance for him. My other big performance is, of course, Mohamed Salah. This is now 9 seasons where he's registered a goal or an assist on the opening day. He's only ever not scored once on opening day. That was against Chelsea last season. And yeah, typical Salah, I probably a controversial take. I don't rate Salah as a player, as an all-round player, super duper highly. I think he's an amazing output machine. He is, he's, you can count on him he will probably hit 20 goals this season, as he seems to always do. So for him to, once again, kind of like Bukayo Saka, start off the season strong is very good. But Salah's overall play, he is what he is at this point. He's now, 32, I believe. So I don't see that his overall play style is going to change a whole ton. But I always just find myself wanting a little bit more from Mohamed Salah. I just find that he leaves a little bit to be desired in his overall play. But I don't think that was the case here in this game. I think credit where it's due. I think he kind of ran the show against Ipswich. Heavily involved in, but obviously scored 1 goal and was heavily involved getting the assist in the second goal. So, and he was really stretching that Ipswich back line, as he tends to, create a lot of space for his team, was always an outlet, which I always do rate about Salah, is if he's having a good game, having a bad game, he is always wanting the ball in dangerous situations, and that wasn't any different here. He still goes down as a great player, in my opinion. And the last few seasons, I would say he has kind of gone down. Just his numbers haven't gone down in, I guess, kind of play. He still registers all those goals and all those assists. So for Salah, I think it's a big season, as it could potentially be his last with Liverpool. There's been rumors now for about 2-3 summers that this could be his last year, and then he's there next year. So who knows? He'll be there for the next 5, I'm sure. Now that I've said this, but I think getting back to that early Liverpool Salah all-around play, where he was one of the best in the league, and he still is one of the best in the league, but where he was one of those guys where it's like, you got to mark it, you got to watch him, whereas now it's kind of just like, he'll probably score, he might get the assist, whereas I don't feel he's as dangerous as he used to be. Once again, numbers are still there. I just don't feel as though he kind of has that about him these days. And I think it's going to be a big season for him, because Liverpool is obviously going to be pushing for that title, you would think. But obviously with a new manager, you never know. We're going off of what we saw last season, in the sense of, well, they were in the title race last season, so they should be in it this season again. So we'll see how that pans out for him. I think it has the makings to be a big season for Mohamed Salah, and of course Liverpool, I would say, as a whole. And now looking at moment of the weekend, speaking of Salah and Liverpool, we're actually going to talk about their opponents. Ipswich returned to the Premier League for the first time in 22 years. And of course, result didn't go their way. It was always going to be an uphill battle. And it doesn't get any easier as they face Man City next week. But, 22-year wait for those fans. For some, I would assume a lot of people in that ground, that was their first ever taste of Premier League football supporting Ipswich. So, regardless of result, regardless of just any of that, just getting to see your club play for the first time, potentially ever in your lifetime, or for the first time in 22 long years, it's got to feel great to see them back in the Premier League. And those fans, what an atmosphere. They didn't stop, even though, like I said, they did come up short on the day. The fans did not stop, and it's what you love to see. These are the things that you love about football, is getting to see stories like this. Those fans have been waiting for nearly a quarter century to see this, and they finally get to. And I honestly do hope Ipswich stay up. It would be cool to see a newly promoted team, especially one that's been absent from the Prem for so long. It would be nice to see them get to kind of stay up. Obviously, I think it will be a very tricky task, but stranger things have happened. But for now, I think it's amazing to see them get to be here and get to kind of experience that, because as a fan, how could you not love that? Now, moving into the relegation zone, once again, since it's the start of the season, the relegation zone is probably going to change a lot throughout the season. But as of right now, there are 8 teams on 0 points. Yes, 8, because as I'm literally recording this bit, Tottenham have conceded to Leicester and making it 1-1, which means if this result stands, then they will have 1 point and not one of them won't have 0. So they both have 1 point apiece. Football. Gotta love it. I'm literally recording this bit as we speak, and that's really funny to me. I'm watching the live table so I can see who all has 0 points so I don't miss someone. And then, Leicester all of a sudden disappeared on me, and now I know why. So, 8 teams, back on track here. 8 teams, Palace, West Ham, Fulham, Southampton, Chelsea, Ipswich, Wolves, and Everton, all facing 0 points. Nothing separating them apart from goal difference. Obviously, as I said, this will probably change throughout the season, you would expect. But just kind of looking at who I think are probably contenders for it here, I would say Southampton, as a newly promoted club, is going to have a tough time. They don't really have, all due respect, they don't have many Prem quality players, and I would say the same goes for Ipswich. I think it's going to be really tricky, and that financial divide between the Prem and Championship is massive. So coming up from the Championship and having to face these powerhouses with the amount that they can spend and have at their disposal compared to you being a Championship club is definitely going to be a very large uphill battle. And obviously, I kind of hope they prove me wrong, because I'd like to see different teams staying in the Prem and whatnot. But just kind of looking at logistically and historically in the last few years, it mainly seems like definitely 2 of the 3 newly promoted teams go down, and sometimes all 3 of them go down. So just kind of looking at like that, Southampton and Ipswich, I think, are 2 teams to watch in this relegation battle. Everton, the last few seasons, has been another team to kind of watch, and I don't expect that to change. Once again, they just don't, they have, once again, all due respect, they have better, I would say, players than the 2 teams I just mentioned. But really, when your star player is Jordan Pickford, I think you're asking for a lot. But, Jared Branthwaite I do rate him. Jack Harrison, I rate him. But once again, Branthwaite, I do think is a very good player. Jack Harrison is probably about, mid-table to low-level kind of Prem quality player. And I say that as a guy that's followed his entire career, really, since his MLS days. But, yeah, I'm just looking at their roster right now, and none of them really kind of strike a lot of confidence in me. But I do think that they'll probably, as they seem to always do, they'll probably do enough to kind of stay up. And then once again, even Wolves, they had a very wishy-washy season, but I don't see them sticking around the relegation zone. They usually do for the first 10 games of every season, and then they kind of just disappear from the relegation zone. So those are kind of the teams that I would say to kind of keep watching in this relegation fight. And I'm sure some of the other teams that kind of got results this weekend, like if this Leicester result holds, I still do think that they are in danger of going right back down. They do have I would say they have a Prem quality team. But, once again, newly promoted team, you never know. And potential point deduction coming their way that could really put a wrench in the plans. And then even like a Nottingham Forest, they sit at 11th on 1 point. They could be fighting relegation again this season. So, once again, we'll have to wait and see. It's very early to tell. These kind of early games are always sometimes false dawns of what you could be seeing in the Prem for the season. For all we know, Southampton, Ipswich, and Wolves could go on European runs. We don't know. But yeah, so these earlier games, you can't always take what you're seeing with a little bit of a grain of salt, because as I've said probably 3 or 4 times in this episode, marathon, not a sprint. Looking at the title race, obviously our top 4 are Brighton, Arsenal, Liverpool, City. I do think, immediately contradicting myself, by the way, I do think that 3 of those teams are ones to watch in this title race because we know Arsenal and City have been battling it out the last 2 seasons, and Liverpool has been a consistent title challenger for the last 5. Last season, they really pushed until that last month where they kind of fell apart. And then, so I really don't have a whole ton interesting to say about that. And then, Brighton is first right now. I don't see that sticking. So, really, I'm saying those 3 teams kind of watch out for the title race. I kind of already covered them, so I don't have a ton more to say on the 3 of them. And looking at European places, you have, once again, so many teams tied on points as logistically you would assume many teams would be. Manchester United, Newcastle, Brentford, Villa, City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Brighton, all tied on 3 points, and goal difference is what separates them. Newcastle could be one of those Europa League challengers. I don't see them challenging for Champions League. United, I do see them challenging for Champions League. They're kind of below the title chasers. Brentford, I would say probably mid-table finish. I don't see them challenging for Europe. Aston Villa, I think it could go one of 2 ways. I think they could Newcastle in the Champions League and just kind of get knocked out completely of Europe after 6 games, like how Newcastle did last year. Or Aston Villa can actually maybe do something in the Champions League and also keep up league form, whereas I feel Newcastle really struggled with that. So I think it could go either way for Villa, so they could be someone that you could be seeing in and around this kind of Champions League chaser type role this season. And yeah, like I've already covered, City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Brighton. Other teams, once again, Tottenham, I think, will be pushing for Champions League. Chelsea will be pushing for Champions League. And then, so really outside of that, everything is up in the air, as it always is after match week 1 in the Premier League. Very exciting. I think it has the makings to be hopefully a good season, as every season does. And then inevitably Man City wins. But yeah, no, I think it's the makings to be a good season. Like I said, you have those 3 title challengers. You kind of have the guys below your Villas, Chelsea, Tottenham, United. You could even throw Newcastle in there, who will be chasing those European places. And then the relegation fighters, in Ipswich, Southampton, Leicester, Nottingham Forest, potentially Brentford, Wolves, guys like that. So I think it's an interesting season. It's, once again, very hard to call after 1 game. And that was kind of the format we're kind of going to be playing with here. Let me know if this is something that you are interested in. If not, I can pivot and try other things out. I kind of like the format. I do. I'm saying this from a non-biased perspective. No, I mean, I created the format. So we'll see how it kind of translates. And if we are liking it or aren't liking it, I would love to hear what you think. Hit me up on socials or here at official Sam Little. DM me, whatever. Just be like, hey, that was pretty sick. And then my ego will grow and I'll be like, damn, yeah, no, that was a really good idea. So that's kind of what I'm thinking going into this Prem season of how we're going to be covering it. This was very much probably a little bit rough. It's the first time I'm kind of doing this. Not doing the podcast, doing this little format. So if it was a little rough, I do apologize. And if this is what we're liking or what we're not liking, I would love to hear. Like I said, hit me up. And yeah, outside of that, I'm going to keep figuring out how I'm going to best cover the Canadian boys. I'm not sure if I want to do it at the start of each Prem episode because I feel like it's very two different things. watching the Canadian boys and then watching the Prem. I feel like it's pretty different given the fact that there are no Canadians in the Premier League. So maybe I'll do a separate episode. Maybe if that's what we want, maybe that's what I'll do. And really, that's about it. I'll be doing this again next week and the week after and the week after because the Prem is weekly. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking, guys. And just stick around, keep supporting if you are. I do appreciate you listening. I love it. I do have more stuff on the way. I know I jokingly teased a new podcast with Chelsea, exclusive podcast earlier in the episode. I would love to do different podcasts if that's what we're loving. And yeah, just really liking doing Maple Footy. Good to be back. And even though it wasn't really mapley, I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, maybe consider following along too, if you aren't already. Find me everywhere at Official Sam Little. Subscribe here, follow along. And yeah, just thank you for listening. And until next time, cheers, everyone.
And that was your Maple Footy podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates at Official Sam Little on Instagram, where I am most active. And until next time, live, laugh, little.